know, this is Dan, and we've got Phil, Dan, another Dan, good name. We've got Rosie, and we've got Amy. And we wanted to do a bit of a group video chinwag because last month we had a few messages. Maybe it's because it's of an event we did, which was aimed at businesses. We started getting messages saying, Dan or Man Up, we've got a couple of staff or member of staff just having a bit of a mental health wobble. They're clearly concerned, which is absolutely the right thing to do, is always be alert. But we're just like, let's pull these guys in. They all spoke at I know Amy didn't, but a fella did, Harold, spoke at the ROI and gave some tips and suggestions. So we thought we'll just have a natter and just go, we'll pick on you first, actually, Dan. I might as well, just because I'm looking at you and because it's such a fantastic name as well. If you notice one of your members of staff just having a bit of a wobble, or even if somebody, I don't want to say whistleblow because that sounds like he's grassing up. I don't mean that how that sounds. But if somebody's just being different, they're not their usual self, what would you say as a business and personally?
So from a both business and personal perspective, what we would tend to do is we would just kind of make sure that they're okay initially. We'll probably just generally have a conversation with them just to find out what's going on, if there is anything going on, do they want to have a chat about it. I think one of the key things that we're quite good at Seven is just making sure that people generally are okay. So obviously, if there were issues, if there was something wrong, there was something that was going on, or an issue, or something that they wanted to talk about, then obviously we would tend to take that outside of the office. So we're really lucky where we are. We're based at BT Industrial Park, and we've got lovely grounds. There is a nice big lake that you can walk around. So what we try to do is get people outside and try to get them open up in the open world, if that makes sense. I think when people leave kind of the environment, it kind of helps them open up a little bit more and become a little bit more kind of, it's more of a friendly chat rather than a kind of like a business chat, if that makes sense. And that's kind of the type of business we are, that we want to get that across to our staff. So it's making sure that we're kind of getting them out. Obviously, sometimes they might not necessarily want to open up as well, but it's giving them the opportunity, I think, to know that there are people there that are willing to listen, and that there are people there that may not be able to help directly, but can put them in contact with other kind of organisations that could help, like Suffolk Mind, like other charities and institutes out there. So I think that's probably how we would deal with that from our perspective at Seven.
Do you find, Dan, that there's a difference based on kind of level within the organisation, from maybe leadership team through to managers and supervisors, as to the type of, I guess, support or advice that they seek in these circumstances?
No, I think the concept I kind of have is that we're all human, aren't we? So we all have the same kind of emotional baggage, and we all have the same kind of emotional elements there. And actually, when you're thinking about kind of stress or anger or any of those kind of things, it all comes back to kind of that emotional intelligence, doesn't it? So I guess what it's about is kind of making them realize that actually we're all human and we all go through these emotions, and actually if there's somebody there that can talk to, that can help them understand those emotions and can help them, point them in the right direction if they need to, then I think that's helpful. I don't necessarily see a difference between kind of the types of kind of conversations that we might have. I guess in some instances you could say that a manager might have a higher stress level than somebody who's a recruitment consultant. But bearing in mind, recruitment consultancy is quite a stressful job anyway. It's very likely that they're going to be very much on par with each other. So I don't necessarily see that at Seven anyway, but I can't speak for other businesses, but I'm not sure if any of the others might be able to tie into that.
You burning a question there, Dan? Like the cogs are turning.
Yeah, I think that was just opening it up for a public knowledge bit there, wasn't it? That was good. So obviously, I've been to your place many times. What about the directors?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
watches him.
Yeah, I know he might be watching. Yeah. I guess I think when I'm thinking about directorate level, I think that we have quite a good senior management team there, and I think actually what we're enabled to do there is actually we're able to kind of think alongside Richard, our director, to actually kind of put our ideas and suggestions forward. And actually, I think what's quite good is that kind of alleviates I hope some of the stress and pressure that he's under, kind of obviously managing the business. And the whole concept of having a senior management team is to make sure that some of that pressure is alleviated so that he can focus on some of the kind of the bigger decisions that have been made as well. I'd also like to think that Richard would also come and talk to any of us as well, to see if there were any problems or issues that he were facing. We are quite an open company, so although we do have a hierarchy structure, you know, the office doors are always open as part of the management team. So we always try to infuse that, you know, people can speak to whoever they feel comfortable with or whoever they want to within the organisation. It doesn't have to go to a direct manager or to a direct leader, and likewise it can be same upwards and downwards as well. So I'd like to think from his perspective, he would come and have a chat with one of us, and we would be able to kind of talk him through or point him in the right direction as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good answers. Thank you very much. So let's do Amy. You're a bit of like the wild card. Actually, I know we were saying like you technically don't have employees, but you kind of do, don't you? You've got other trainers as well as you training other people's businesses, blah blah blah.
Yeah, we do. I think the main thing that I would probably say, and this is from how looking at other businesses, so it's kind of works on a personal level as well, really, is asking questions. So something I think that when people have these kind of conversations around mental health, they're really worried about saying or doing the wrong thing. But it's more about asking questions, because, for example, just say to somebody, how can we support you? How can we help you at this moment? What's going to be helpful for you? Rather than trying to assume what they need. And then also just actively listening to what they're saying and giving them space to talk is really important. And I think that the basics of having conversations around these topics that people seem to shy away from are the foundation to building a good culture around mental health, is making an environment where people feel comfortable to have those conversations. I'm not sure if I answered the question or went off a little bit there, but
No, I think it was a valid one, but I'm just like I remember I'm waiting for Phil.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how long are you going to leave us hanging there, dude?
I think quite like, have I said something wrong? Like,
No, not at all. I find it interesting, particularly what you and Harold do with Elite Force anyway, because you're exposed to so many different types of businesses. So you also kind of see the differences across industry sectors and things like that. So there's clearly kind of different views or approaches from office-based through to more physical and, you know, manual handling jobs. But have you sort of seen more of a change now? Obviously, most of the time you're invited into these businesses to kind of proactively provide that support and advice and guidance already. But does that then often open up the conversation more? Do people then kind of come and talk to you on the periphery or the side for a little bit more advice or support?
I think so. And I think also, just because we've been invited into a business, it doesn't mean that everyone on the course wants to be on the course or thinks they should be on the course. So
Don't get me started.
So quite often you have, like, we do quite a lot in the construction industry, and we are quite lucky that everyone that we train is quite receptive to it. But, you know, there's the different generations, there's the male dominated industries where there's a different environment to, you know, somewhere like nursing, for example, where you have quite a high understanding about health and mental health anyway. And that comparison is quite interesting. But I think generally when you start talking to people and explaining the basics of it, really, and even talking about things like stress and pressure and how that builds and how that can lead into problems. Everyone knows what it's like to have pressure. So once you start getting things, talking about topics that people can relate to and aren't so stigmatized, then they start to understand more the bigger picture around mental health and how it can affect literally anybody.
Yeah. Because you must have it a little bit harder though, because you only employ ex-forces, don't you?
Yeah, but they're really good.
Oh, yeah, because I would have thought. Oh, right, okay. So because I would have thought a lot of them would be stiff upper lip, train.
They are, but it's different because. So I'm not ex-military myself, so I'm kind of talking from what I've heard and what I've gathered. And I think it's quite similar in places like the police and fire service as well. So you kind of have these support groups that you have when you're in that environment, because you know, if I was to talk to somebody who was in the military and they were to share their experiences with me, I wouldn't even be able to comprehend what they've done. I can understand it to an extent from an outsider point of view, but I haven't been there, I haven't been involved in that. So I think that when you've kind of got a support group without really realizing it, and I think that's why a lot of people actually have issues when they leave, because they've lost that support group. So you would have the banter and the chat and probably talk more openly about things than they realize. And then when they come out of that environment, I think that's why a lot of military kind of have that, you know, connection still.
Yeah.
And I actually heard, I can't remember where I heard this story. It's probably one of Harold's that I'm recycling from someone that he's heard it from. And it was about a fire service. So it's a similar kind of situation where they see all these traumatic things and they have this little like debrief in a room afterwards where they just, you know, bat it around, and then somebody got promoted and then they actually started having issues because they weren't part of that little group anymore. So they didn't have they actually had like kind of after effects PTSD because they didn't have that release in that group with the colleagues that they were with before. So I think that's probably the military thing makes, because they've had that, they're quite good at speaking to people in the right environment, but it may be in a different way to how you would expect or how people would normally discuss things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It makes absolutely perfect sense. The one thing I'm just going to chuck in there just to take over, so I apologise. At what point do people ask you for mental health training? The reason I'm going to give you context, because I have found there was a business the other day, they asked me and Phil to go in, and there seems to be a small pattern of they want to educate themselves when something horrible has happened.
Yeah, I think that there's that, or if you're really lucky and you get somebody who is in an influential position who understands the value of it. Yeah. So I think a big issue is obviously it costs money. So if you're in charge of budgets and looking after things and you don't see the value in it, you're not going to push for it. But if you get somebody in that position who's like, no, I can see the value, this needs to happen because this, whether they've had personal experience or whether they just know what it's going to bring to the business, or if they've been or seen something awful happen, which unfortunately is the way that a lot of health and safety training gets pushed, because you don't realize you need it until it's too late. So a variety, but obviously much rather it be because people see the value, not because something awful has happened, but it's a combination, unfortunately.
I think it's slowly changing, but I'm not in your games. I can only say what was the trouble is we're running a charity. People only tell us what they think we want to hear. You obviously see the other. You obviously see the other side of it. But anyway, Rosie from Briggs Equipment, I'm going to say straight away, when you did your speech talk at the ROI event, what was that, last month now, wasn't it? Last month? You were absolutely fantastic. And that room where you could hear a pin drop. I'm not, well done to you.
Thank you. I was really nervous.
No, I think you absolutely nailed it. But I think the thing what I like about you and Briggs Equipment as well is you're always willing to learn. You're a massive company. You're willing to learn. And you're always making changes because you're just well aware that your staff, well, there is no Briggs without your staff.
Yeah, I mean, we're a materials handling business, which I know I said at the event. We look after a lot of plant equipment, but the main, I hate to say it's a product, but the main source of, you know, our product is the minds that fix the machines. So the service that we provide, you know, those people go out and service the trucks and everything like that, but they're the direct relationship that we have with the customer, and hence continue to make us profit and stuff like that. So it's invaluable. Like Amy just said, you know, sometimes businesses decide to take the jump for training after an awful event, but I guess when your product is people, you know, it's never too early to invest, because you're only going to get reward from that, whether that be financial or people being authentic to come to work and feel they can be themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
No,
I find it fascinating as well, because I've worked across quite a few different kind of industries, and even agency side as well, as HR can be quite fractured in many cases as well, and most people don't know where to start or how to reach out. So I guess question for all of you individually is, if you were giving some advice to either, you know, an employee or an employer who was considering, you know, where do you start if somebody has reached out, they're having a bit of a wobble, what would be the sort of the starting point of the first piece of advice that you would give? Dan, I guess we'll start with you.
I guess the first point of call for me would be, again, like it's just having a conversation with them. I'd want to find out, you know, if they will be willing to open up. It's all from our perspective, I think it's all about trust, isn't it? And making sure that they feel that they can trust and actually open up and speak freely about what's on their mind without being judged or kind of or value, you know, and making sure that they felt valued about that as well. So I think the first port of call for me would probably just getting them to open up and speak, you know, either to me or to whoever they feel comfortable with within the business. I guess that would be my first port of call. Secondly, it'll probably be just, again, doing everything we can, really. I mean, in the past, we've had people whereby we've kind of given them time out, you know, we've supported them, you know, we've had colleagues that have driven them to particular counselling sessions if they've needed them. So it really does depend on the situation, but that first port of call is finding out exactly what's happening and what we can do to help support them. So
yeah, no, and Amy,
I think just further on what Dan said, really, is when you're having that conversation, to ask open questions. So to encourage them to get talking, give them space to actually talk, and then once you've got that, you can go from there with more information. I think something that a lot of the time happens is that people assume, and you don't really know until you start asking the questions and get them to actually share. So
yeah. And Rosie?
Yeah, I guess from an employer's point of view, I guess following on from everybody else would be, don't try and fix it. You're not there to fix it. Don't try and silver line it. Don't try and rationalise it, and don't be judgy. It sounds pretty straightforward, those three things, but as a manager, you always want to fix things. Or if somebody's coming to you with an issue, if as kind people, you want to help, you want to take it all away and put it in a box and make sure they never have to think about it again, but that's not actually reality. So I think signposting is a really important one, which Dan mentioned before. Obviously, Amy provides the training, you know, get clued up, be ready for these conversations, because they're definitely coming. If you employ a human being, you will have this conversation. But the three main things that I tell any manager who's going to have the conversation is, you're not going to get it wrong, because it's a conversation and you're human too. Don't try and fix it, and don't judge them. But I think a good piece of resource to start would be just to watch like some simple videos on YouTube, which I think I can send over and share. But stuff like Brené Brown has great talks on not silver lining things. And there's a video called It's Not About the Nail. Basically, a woman has a nail in her head. It's very like literal, and her partner's trying to say the nail's causing the problem, and the partner and the lady's like, it's not about the nail, and it isn't. She's just trying to explain how she's feeling. She doesn't want it fixed, and I think that's just a big part of trying to help somebody, is not necessarily fixing the problem, it's them feeling heard.
Yeah. And then flipping it, I've kind of got one question I'd like to get all of your views on. Is often the case is that people don't tend to be the ones to reach out, right? It's suffering in silence. But what can, in your experience, people do to be more observant and proactive managers when it comes to kind of supporting other people that won't necessarily be directly exhibiting signs or reaching out, but there might be, you know, things that you could potentially pick up on. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, sorry, I'm just jumping in there. Firstly, you can't make somebody talk. If they don't want to, if they don't want to talk, they're not going to talk, and there's always going to be people that won't. I think it's about, for me, something we say is really important is that's why it's important that everybody has awareness training, because they might not want to talk to a manager, but they might be working closely with somebody day in, day out who they do feel comfortable talking to. And it doesn't need to be a big revelation. I've got depression and I feel suicidal. It can be, yeah, I've been a bit shit actually recently, and just open that conversation. But then if everyone has a basic level of awareness, then everyone is better equipped to, one, recognize those things in themselves, and two, recognize it in other people and be comfortable having the conversations.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. Actually, I think the main thing is making sure that people are feeling comfortable, that they feel open, that they can speak to anybody. I completely echo that. I think that's one of the good things about Seven, is that we do kind of offer that out to people. And I think as well, like, we're not there, as Rosie said, we're not there to fix the problem. We're there to help support them. Hopefully we'll be part of that puzzle, putting the puzzle together and fixing something for them. But we can't be there to kind of fix the problem completely, but we can give them support and guidance that they need to go away and get the support that they need, or give them just an ear for someone to listen to. Any of that stuff is just as important, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally. What about you, Phil? If you see someone in distress?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one, because it has happened kind of firsthand in both respects. So both ends of the spectrum, where it's like people have reached out, even just kind of subtly, where they're having a bit of a time. But the ones that I always find a bit more challenging is when you are kind of noticing something in someone, and it's not always as obvious as, they've been off long-term sick, or they're just really, really, really quiet. It just might be that they're just a little bit disengaged, or the energy's not quite there, and it often is just a case of reaching out. For me, I bloody love just getting away from screens and going for a walk anyway. Right, I like that level of separation, and it can often be that in that working environment of just going, I'm going to go for a bit of a bimble at work. Do you want to come, shoot the shit? And just, you can kind of, it's a bit of, exactly as Dan says, like up at Adastral Park, is take it out of the environment of the work, because that removes a lot of the anxiety and the context around the fact that actually I don't want to share this, where I might feel a bit more vulnerable because it might affect my employment or my employability, and it just kind of takes you into a different environment, which is a bit more natural and open. So yeah,
exactly. Also, so I did a video. It's embarrassing, I can't remember who it was, but he said, if you ever want to have a heart-to-heart with somebody, not necessarily Mrs. or fellow or whatever else, you want to have a bit of a chat and get them to open up, go for a drive with them. Make sure you're sitting beside each other and not face each other, especially in the workplace, because I find the workplace can just be quite comfort, that word. Yeah. It could just escalate, can't it? But actually just go for lunch break.
Good for people that don't like eye contact as well.
Yeah, no, exactly that, which is exactly that. So yeah. Is there someone else? Was it Rosie? Or have I jumped in? Or have I got confused?
No, I guess I agree with what everybody said. I mean, one point that we've just really tried to zone in on is especially when we notice and we're not in the office together, so potentially we might not be in the same space to be able to go for those walks and stuff. We talk quite a lot about asking twice. So like, we will call and you'll say, "Hi, are you okay?" And the person says yes straight away, and actually that's probably not what's going on or anything like that. So we try to make a point of asking twice, so asking again at another point. So obviously you do your initial hi and stuff, and then a little bit further down the conversation, "Are you sure you're okay?" And that person will then have to actually think about what they're going to respond, because it's not a natural response to just say yes. Like, they actually have to think about how they feel. So I know that when you're not in the office, or potentially an office worker, we've tried to boost that a little bit more. So that would just be my advice if you're not in the office and working with somebody directly.
Yeah, another brilliant reply on that. So I think we're done, aren't we?
On time, that's rare.
I think that is very, very rare, considering it's a groupie as well. Absolutely.
The delegates have just come back. It's perfect timing because my delegates have just come back.
Oh, well, there you go then. Well, thanks for joining on. But obviously, I'll do all the taggy stuff and all that kind of stuff. If there's any charities or services, especially your videos, Rosie, just send them over to an email and I'll tag all of that stuff. Happy days. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Nice to
you.
see you all as well.
And you.
You too. And you too.
Thanks.
See you,
Bye.
bye.
This is that bit where I'm like, do I just remove everybody or do I?
Where's the
If I
stop
leave-
recording button?
Yeah, there you go. All done. Happy with that?
Yeah, you happy with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking where you took over. That's probably the start of the video.
Really?
I think so. Obviously, I'll watch it. I'll stick it in the drive anyway. Yeah,
Well, you got